The old man replied smoothly, Lion Don Ki has good prices. The quality is as good as Ngok-backed banana leaves. Ngok Thien's ink is as clear as Kim Ho Na. A few hundred taels of silver can still be sold. However, Nguyen Thiep Diem's smooth ink is difficult to sell in Quang Dong, priced at around 80 taels. Li Diem tapped my head gently. Even your head is worth only 500 taels, just enough to buy one inkstone. Well then, farewell, gentlemen. Your profession is truly respectable. I'd like to invite you to Dai Tu Sun as guests, to teach us how to get rich through trading ink. What do you think? Hearing this, Lam Nguyen Phu stammered, Please sir, don't jest. I am over 60 years old and cannot withstand the storms at sea. I hope you'll show mercy. If something happens to me, my wife and children will starve to death. Li Diem remained silent, looking at the old man. Seeing this, Trong Dom was about to speak but was interrupted. We don't need to ask this old man. I don't want to waste any more time, said Li Diem decisively. Lam Nguyen Phu fell silent, slowly taking off his hat to reveal his silver hair. If you insist on taking me, then so be it. But I must return to my family, he said. Li Diem placed a green bean in front of me and muttered, If you disappear suddenly, someone will take your place without worry. No need to report to the family. The officials will automatically bring 10 taels of silver to find you. Hearing this, both of them were startled. They didn't understand how Li Diem knew their true identities. Trong Dong stood up, but the old man held him back. Just ordered another table. I'm not full yet, Lam Nguyen Phu replied. Li Diem smiled and nodded. When receiving Raz's identity, Li Diem intended to kill him immediately. It would earn him a high score. Although killing him might not be the best option, it was certainly the simplest and safest. However, he changed his mind due to Phu Diem's suggestion. He activated a special event, the notorious pirate kidnapping Lam Nguyen Phu to Dai Tu Sun, using him as a hostage to force the court to pay ransom. The higher the ransom, the higher the score. Completing the event would expand the purchasing power and offer special rewards. Note that no pirate has ever kidnapped high-ranking officials of the court and demanded ransom. This was a great opportunity for fame. So why think of killing him so simply? On the end's deck, Li Diem asked Chad Tiu Dao if there was any news. Chad Tiu Dao laughed and said, At the private school, we found a military book. After reading it, we understood only one word, war. Everything useful is here. This treasure can exchange for 200 Diem Phu points or worth 1,000 taels of silver as offerings for military aroma. The rare double-edged sword has the property of penetrating flesh 100%. The frog mesh and red-tailed kite cannot be taken out of the event. This event can produce high-quality fish with a high chance of picking rare frozen seafood. The red-tailed kite can open Diem Phu events on a large scale. Li Diem quickly agreed without hesitation, saying, Don't divide the net and red-tailed kite. I'll take the jewelry and you take the sword. Hearing this, Cha Tiu Dao asked happily, So what's my profit? Li Diem replied straightforwardly, If your fat jump wall materials are enough, give me a portion, it will be helpful for me. When Cha Tiu Dao agreed happily, Li Diem asked curiously, Your martial skills, can they be combined with anything else? Cha Tiu Dao excitedly replied, Before determining the best direction for inheritance, it is best to develop complementary skills. My abilities still support a lot. I intend to combine 10,000 miles without retreat with something. Surely it is an assassin's trick. Li Diem thought for a moment before saying, What do you think about winning 100 battles? On the calm sea, sometimes a few fish jump. As the two conversed and relaxed, Cha Tiu Dao asked, Are you really planning to kidnap that old man and extort the court? Li Diem responded, In the Diem Phu event, it's written like that. But forcing the court to compromise with pirates is as difficult as reaching the sky. I know the court will definitely strike first, but they won't strike back. Then they will come back to negotiate with the 10 of us. The biggest problem for me now is not the court, but Thap Phu Nan. From here to Dai Tu Sun takes less than a day by boat. Perhaps I can still meet her. But that woman must die. She's cautious and cruel, influenced by the assassination techniques in her bones. She's cold and ruthless. Despite appearing resentful and expectant when facing Diem Than, she cannot hide the threat from Thap Phu Nan. The biggest threat to me is her, greater than the court and any other pirates. Almost all of the old Hong Kai have died. Thap Phu Nan is the true leader. She is the only one who can push Diem Than out of the leadership position. If she finds out I'm not her foster son as she thinks, her kindness to me will turn into cruelty. This woman can capture her lover and swallow her spine to get the assassination technique. She wouldn't even dare to ensure her own safety, let alone mine. I quickly attacked the external anal sphincter, aiming to establish prestige and explore, mostly because I didn't know how to deal with this woman. It's better to stay away. Lai Diem was lost in thought when Cha Tiu Dao, beside him, lowered the fishing net into the water, watching the fish swim swiftly. He pulled it up forcefully, but only caught a little water. Seeing this, Lai Diem couldn't help but suppress a laugh. He took the fishing net and tried it, looking serious as he glanced at the sea. Though he didn't know how to fish, he was skilled with firearms, dancing gracefully. The raging waves turned the dark fishing net into gumflowers. Then Lai Diem pulled it up sharply and discovered a human head in the net, with blood dripping from it. Cha Tiu Dao looked uncomfortable. Suddenly, a sailor pointed to the sky and shouted loudly. Everyone looked in that direction, seeing countless white carp jumping on the surface, forming a white bridge on the sea. The sailor on the ship stared blankly at the scene, which was considered a miraculous sign from the heavenly goddess crossing the sea. Cha Tiu Dao quickly turned to Lai Diem and asked, "What is the heavenly goddess crossing the sea?" Lai Diem looked up at the sky and explained, "That heavenly goddess crossing the sea is a miracle. It will last about a day. Once it appears, some ships will come to try their luck. It's a famous legend in Nam Dong." At this moment, everyone abandoned their work and focused on the white carp flying in the sky. When the swift boat passed by, both Lai Diem and Cha Tiu Dao were amazed as the inherited power within them reacted, filling them with vitality. The wounds on the pirates' bodies healed. Even old scars from years ago disappeared. All the pirates knelt down, praying to the school of carp. Lai Diem and Cha Tiu Dao looked at each other, feeling something unusual. A crane flew up into the sky, looking down at the swift boat under the sea. Through the crane's eyes, Lai Diem saw a giant black shadow lurking under all the ships. This giant carp was so powerful that a growl nearly killed Cha Tiu Dao. Just now, Toto transmitted images to Lai Diem, showing the black shadow rising to the surface of the water, but it disappeared in a blink of an eye. Lai Diem thought for a moment and then ordered Toto to fly higher for a wider view. At this moment, the giant black shadow reappeared, covering the entire fleet. Lai Diem was horrified to realize that he had mistaken it earlier. It wasn't a single mass but hundreds of them. He didn't know what it was, perhaps a sea monster. Meanwhile, a black shadow gradually appeared in front of the ship's bow, with numerous plate-sized bubbles rising. Thanks to the crane's vision, Lai Diem saw everything clearly. Suddenly, his pupils shrank, and he couldn't remain calm. He shouted to the sailors that something was wrong, turning the helm and firing the cannons. The sailors immediately turned the warship, skillfully avoiding it. The cannons aimed straight ahead, and there was a loud bang. A four-tiered black ship emerged, with many parts shattered, its cabin torn apart, and the deck covered in seaweed. Then, a sailor reminded Diem Than that cannons shouldn't be used in the heavenly goddess crossing the sea, or else they would be punished. Ignoring the sailor's words, Lai Diem activated his most critical move, but Diem Phu only showed a question mark, not knowing anything except the ship's name, Vong Van. Cha Tiu Dao walked up and asked, "Why are you so timid this time? Take a look, it might be useful." Lai Diem, pointing at the black ship, also said, "Who knows what that black ship is? But what if it's nothing?" Diem Phu only showed a clear question mark. "What are you afraid of? Just go see. It might be helpful," Cha Tiu Dao murmured. Diem Phu only showed a clear question mark. "Why are you afraid of bad luck? Just go. What's the worst that could happen?" Hong Ki boats quickly passed. Huge black ship continued towards Daetusan throughout the journey. After that, the strange things almost never stopped, occasionally bumping into old wooden crates. not sure where it came from, largely empty, but there are also barrels full of white silver, pearls, and other precious items. All precious things with meat can all be used as offerings to the soldiers. Under the moonlight, the sea was as quiet as sheets on the deck. Everyone looked at the wooden barrel that had just been picked up. Diem signaled the old man next to him to open the lid of the box. A knife swung down and the barrel burst open. A giant purple octopus appears before everyone's eyes. The teeth of two move continuously. Sharp teeth grow all over the suction ring. Suddenly a Xuktu rushed straight into the old man's temple. Elder Maid responded quickly ducked down to escape the attack sailor next door, deftly threw a can of kerosene at the octopus. Then 4 years later another torch flew. The octopus immediately burst into flames into a Confucian fireball. The giant soon died silently. "This old man is bothering me, saying he wants to see you," said Tiuba, holding a brush made of branches. Cha Tiu Dao was surprised and asked, "Does the old man dare to bother you?" Even though he's only 14 years old, Tiuba is already a notorious demon of Hong Ki Bang. Since childhood, he has wandered on pirate ships. At the age of 5, Tiuba clashed with the gang and was nearly beaten to death. Fortunately, he met Thien Bao Tu passing by and saw Tiuba trembling on the ground, biting his ear. This scene left a deep impression on Thien Bao Tu, as if seeing himself in the past. He was especially interested in and introduced Tiuba to Thap Phu Nan Kail Lai Kwai, the secret technique of Nu Ki throughout Hong Ki Bang. Only Thap Phu Nan could train for 2 years to create a bronze Kail Lai Kwai, extremely powerful. Others in the gang were somewhat afraid of this unfamiliar child. Cha Tiu Dao murmured, "Even though this old man isn't very eye-catching, he still doesn't dare to face Tiuba." Lai Diem looked at Tiuba, half smiling, half not, causing trouble. "I guess he's sick." Tiuba nodded and repeatedly signaled that he wouldn't touch anything related to the old man. Lai Diem turned to Tiuba and instructed him to send the old tiger doctor to see the old man first, then tell the Lam family that if they couldn't catch the governor alive, hanging his corpse on the mast could also make Hong Ki Bang famous. If the old man had already died, then kill the young man next to him. There's no place for useless people on the ship. Tiuba nodded and left. Cha Tiu Dao asked Lai Diem, "Are you really not afraid of him dying?" Lai Diem calmly looked at Cha Tiu Dao and said, "What's there to fear if he dies? We're pirates, not jesters." As night fell, thick fog covered the sea. Sailors tied iron chains to the ship's tail and connected them to prevent separation in the bones. Cha Tiu Dao stretched his shoulders and pulled up the net, catching a large golden fish. He shook the fish lightly, which was longer than Yem Zion Lion, and suddenly, the fish sprayed a stream of water. A faint cry, like that of a newborn baby, echoed from its mouth. Cha Tiu Dao felt dizzy and pain in his ears. Blood spurted from his ear, rupturing his eardrum. The unexpected incident shocked him. The super fish seized the opportunity to escape from his hand, floating in the air and saying human words directly to Thien. Before he could speak the third word, Lai Diem skewered the fish, causing it to struggle and die silently. Cha Tiu Dao wiped the blood from his hands, still dizzy, and asked what kind of monster it was and how it could speak human language. Lai Diem activated the Red Bell Immortal Disc, one of the 3,000 types of heavenly crossings. Its cry resembled that of a newborn baby. According to legend, it's the soul of a sailor who died unjustly at sea, transformed into a clinging spirit through the cycle of reincarnation, especially used as food to increase soul strength. Its summoning skill can recognize the summoner. Lai Diem thought, there are 3,000 types of crossings. At that moment, a lookout on the ship suddenly shouted, "Something's coming." Lai Diem looked carefully and saw a shining golden shark in the glistening foam, the Ho Kim shark, one of the 3,000 types of heavenly crossings. It's a species of heavenly crossing fish raised by fishermen, incredibly powerful. Its precious flesh can increase vitality and bone density. Some related recipes can fully maximize its food value. Lai Diem and Cha Tiu Dao were excited, but as the Ho Kim shark approached, They both were astonished to discover it suffering. A rope pierced its back, floating on the surface. At the end of the rope was a man wearing a black vest, a high hat, and a yellow mustache in the mist. The man paid attention to Lai Diem's gaze, took off his hat, and bowed politely. Lai Diem chuckled and mimicked the gesture of a Western pioneer, then turned back and ordered the sailors that the fish belonged to them, fire the cannons, and shoot the man falling into the sea. Seeing the sailors loading cannonballs, Lai Diem reconsidered. Heavenly crossings shouldn't be used for artillery, right? Then shoot arrows. In no time, several Honkai pirates with wooden bows aimed at the white man on the sea. When they saw a few Dong's archers aiming at them, the man exclaimed and cursed loudly, calling Talaran, saying he would make them pay for their rudeness. Then he quickly drew his sword, cutting off the arrow that was about to hit him. Talaran winced, his sword striking hard, breaking a gap in the arrow and tearing his palm. He quickly swung his sword, cutting off the exhausted arrow, then smiled triumphantly at Lai Diem, who also smiled back when he saw the ships approaching. On the ship, hundreds of Dong's pirates, with black bows, formed a rain. Dark arrows covered the hero's sight, with numerous arrows piercing his body. Blood seeped slowly around him, leaving only his hat floating on the sea in the white fog. The white sails fluttered, and a giant steel ship, 400 meters long, emerged from the sea, with 70 large cannons, all bearing the glorious badge of Dong and Company, belonging to Mason, the mercenary leader, who punched the table hard. Inside the cabin were various chests, full of Washington's demons. Mason angrily warned that the ship might only carry a highly pure addictive substance, like high-purity opium. Therefore, the so-called rejuvenation was just his speculation. The man with the silver shook his head, saying that this lovely white thing couldn't be a demon. It was the greed in their hearts that led them to death. He firmly held the silver and continued, "The heavenly crossings are simply the favor of the spirit, the god Vien Dong. Do you know what I found on an old drifting ship? I've never seen such beautiful porcelain before." But Mason, furious, retorted, "But that ship also took the lives of more than 40 of our soldiers. Furthermore, Washington, I warn you, that thing could be just an addictive substance, like high-purity opium. So the so-called rejuvenation is just your speculation." Washington replied, "No matter what you say, we will decide whether to leave this sea area or not in a proper manner. You cast a vote. I cast a vote to stay, Lauren. What about you?" Washington looked surprised at the empty seat. Where did Ren go? At that moment, a beautiful watch engraved with the Dong and Company logo fell from the sky. Diem quickly caught it. "What's the relationship between your Dong and Company and the celestial beauty crossing the sea?" Dao was ready to dissect the golden shark, wielding his knife skillfully, causing everyone to be amazed. In a moment, the hundreds of kilograms of shark flesh were reduced to mere bones. Dao took the softened bones of the shark and said to Diem, "The bones of this shark can be used as ingredients for the fat jumping wall dish, so I will keep them for now." An hour later, a hot and fragrant soup was prepared, and when the shark meat was added to the pot, a delicious aroma filled the air. Diem asked Dao with interest, "I heard that shark meat cannot be eaten because it contains heavy metals and toxins." Dao arrogantly retorted, "Can any of you in the gang cook? Our elders say that shark meat is good medicine, capable of relieving swelling and inflammation, and a tonic after severe illness. It's not easy to catch, but now we're just throwing it back into the sea." Diem kept the shark liver to fry, but it turned out that the shark meat couldn't be eaten, which was quite amusing. Below deck, Truongdong looked at Lan Duanfu with a pale face, silently thinking that Honkabang wasn't treating them well. Lan Duanfu, on the other hand, thought, "I am a high-ranking court official, appointed by the king, and now Luongquang's governor. If I die on your ship, aren't you afraid? Why don't you love me enough to let me go? It would be easy to negotiate if we meet, but this guy chooses to let me die on my own." On the deck, a scholar, Men, jumped onto Dao back with a rope. "Pick me a piece of jade," he said. Dao, addressing the boy, replied, "Did you hear what Thien Bao said? It's poisonous, yet you dare to eat it." But Tuba didn't argue. "Your cooking skills are known to everyone in the gang. I'm sure it's not poisonous." Suddenly, Diem looked serious. Tuba, did I say everyone knows your skills? After receiving an answer, Diem asked Tuba how long they had known each other. Tuba replied, "It's been a long time, I can't remember." Diem asked the other sailors, "How long have you known me?" Some answered 5 years, some 7. The ship's doctor, who had known Diem the longest, said it had been 15 years. Chatudeo glanced at Diem, understanding. He asked why a fisherman like him had cooking skills. Diem looked at the old tiger and continued to ask, "Do you know what I like and what I'm good at?" The tiger thought for a moment and murmured, "You don't have anything special, just like to have fun." Diem casually waved his hand, "Who doesn't like fun? But you've never appreciated anyone in the academy. At most, 20 or so years, but you still managed to maintain some appeal." Chetudeo cut across the conversation, serving the shark soup to Lamb, who was drinking it for nourishment. The old tiger reacted, accepting the remark. "Bring the soup over quickly," he said. Chetudeo patted Diem on the shoulder and said, laughing, "Think about it. Than Bautu is 18 or 19 years old now. Living with a foster mother for so long, he's still childish. I'm telling you this because it's either a shadow or liking someone younger and not yet mature. Do you understand, or do you want to taste the marrow to know the flavor?" At that moment, Diem felt a chill around his neck from the money pouch. Danuong inside seemed angry, ready to explode. Sensing Danuong's anger beneath his shirt, Diem looked coldly at his side, seeing the icy glare from Danuong. Chatudeo knew it wasn't okay and hurried away. But Diem wasn't easy to forgive. Diem chased after him with his martial arts skills, quicker than Chetudeo. In just a few seconds, he had subdued him. Chetudeo said seriously, "I know you want to confirm something. I met Chu Tam." Hearing that, both stopped struggling. Chetudeo recounted the encounter with Chu Tam after Chu Vo's death. The traces of his existence in the real world seemed to have been completely erased. Everyone around Chu Tam thought she was the only child. But from Chu Tam's eyes and her loss, Chetudeo realized she knew everything. Compared to disguising her death as an accident, this made people shudder. Diem silently thought, and said it very clearly, Diem Phu is indeed a parallel space with reality. After Hanta Diem Phu arrived, even without using artifacts to improve their identities, the upbringing and environment in this reality were all based on investigation. So, why is Than Bautu identical to Hanta? Does this person really exist, or is it a mysterious imposter disguised as Diem Phu, or has Diem Phu edited everyone's memories, forcing them to identify themselves as Than Bautu? Chatautu is indeed Chatudao, which is also incorrect. The cost is too high. If Diem Phu has such capabilities, there's no need for them to cause trouble in their own world, attracting attention. There's no need to use an organization like the Ring to handle us. It's enough to directly manipulate us. Ultimately, does Diem Phu have their own personal will or not? In the end, what is the law between each reality and the Han-Ta crossover? Who is Diem Phu? When I arrived at Than Bautu, I disappeared completely. I replaced Than Bautu. Chu Vo's death left no trace of existence. The truths behind the cover-ups are still shrouded in mist. Diem seems to have caught a thread leading to the truth but is still stuck. At that moment, Chetudeo brought food and said not to think too much. Eating beforehand would increase soul strength. After eating the steamed fish and shark soup, the strength of the bones and blood circulation increased. After finishing eating, Diem stood on the bomb, looking at the dense fog, murmuring, "The Dong and Company ships should be like the Honky Gang, falling into this dense fog. Lauren is probably ahead of the wave, losing contact with the main force. It's late at night, and everyone in the cabin is fast asleep." Then Tuba gets up, grabs the long knife on the table, and goes out. The cold wind blows, waking 2 people up. Lam Guanfu closes his eyes, asking Truongdong to see what's happening. Truongdong, his hands bandaged, walks out in pain, feeling angry. Just because he argued a few words with the old man, Tuba broke his arm. These pirates are all deserving of death. On the bomb, everyone is busy and tense. At this time, 2 teams of ships appear around an island. On the left is a team of armed transport ships, smaller than Honki's pirate ship. From the flag on the mast, it's clear that it's the pirate team of Taejiang, the most notorious being Sukuban. On the right is a two-story ship hundreds of meters long, with 4 masts, 3 triangles at the bow, and 9 black flags on the ship's wall. It's the legendary pirate team from the old Kwangtae region. Before the ship is a dinghy, on which someone holds a head. Seeing the birds, they curse loudly. The people of Honki are also involved. The man on the dinghy throws the head into the sea and looks up at the ship. As the ships approach, a pirate next to Diem shouts loudly, "Are you pirates? Say a few words." The Chubontin responds, "We're sailing together. Right now, the Chu family is in charge, so call us that for convenience." Hearing the shouts, Chaetiudeo looks at Diem with a vague expression. Diem explains his indifference. On the left is Chuban of Taejiang, nicknamed Ngayathai. On the right is the counterpart of Nuki, the beloved pirate Trauma. 2 years ago, to escape Nuki's pursuit, he unexpectedly transformed into the commander-in-chief of Annam. He has since become intimate with his brother. Seeing Diem's signal, a man steps forward from the Nuki ship, bowing to Diem. The person is Thien Bao, the boss of the Nuki alliance. "Why, do you remember me?" he asks. "I'm Loikam. Last year, Thien Bao drank with our boss. My brother and I went with him." Diem smiles and nods. "Of course, how could I forget? You're quite lively, Loitam. What's all this excitement about?" Seeing Diem remember him, Diem smiles and says, "Thien Bao boss is also following along, Paul Sidon. Boring days these past few days. The authorities are searching for trouble on my Lentau island. Thafun ordered me to provoke them. I just brought the people back, killed the Navy Admiral of the Homon, Trachohung, and he's on his way back. Does anyone believe that Loikam didn't ask? Madam told you to kill, you killed successfully, right?" Diem raises his hand to his hip and says, "Can I be angry? The order is to bite the bullet and charge. The head of Trachohung is still hanging on the mast. If you don't believe it, there's an agency on the ship to check." Loigam shakes his head, not meaning that. "The alliance boss says we have to help them chase Trana's gang, and we'll split the loot." Diem looks out to sea, where a net is being pulled up between the two ships. Inside are piles of shimmering gold and a few fish scales sparkling on the surface. Suddenly, Diem and Chaetiudao notice something emerging. It's a knife, sharpened into powder, with the ability to increase the awakening rate of any inheritance by 1%. Diem and Chaetiudao look at each other and smile, their eyes determined to seize the treasure. At that moment, a man steps out onto the black flag ship, with a beard like a wolf. He shouts loudly, saying that even the people of Inyuki want to get involved. "Just follow the rules. Whoever wants to be recruited comes up. Let's fight. One person fights until they die. Then throw them into the sea and move on to the next. When there's no one left, stop. There will be a dawn before 100,000 people arrive." Diem looked down, nodding in contemplation. The small boat was cramped, with no space to move. 2 people held their weapons, risking their lives. A few moves could determine life or death. It might sound slower than 1,000 people not reaching Yemsuyenlian Island, but it could truly result in wiping them all out. Diem generously said to Loidam, "Let's do it this way. Win one battle, claim a part. Whoever wins more takes more. We split up. Some of us charge towards Yemsuyenlian. How shall we attack?" Loitam, with a serious expression, nodded in agreement. Diem patted his chest. "You go first, and I'll support you." Loitam made an unwilling face. "I'm not fooling around. You look out on the sea. This arm, this leg, the bald one has killed many of my comrades before on the Trauma ship. The man said Thafun is here, so he's cautious, but Diem doesn't have that courage." Chaetiudao moved his wrist and said to Diem, "Or let me go." "You're the leader, you certainly can't go first." Diem calmly smiled, switching to a black flag, then jumped onto the mast, shouting loudly, "To go up, you must risk your life in battle. Are you afraid of being crushed to death in the first battle?" Without waiting for an answer, Diem spun and tossed the flag. A strong gust of wind cut through the opponent. The man on the deck staggered, nearly falling into the sea, his cold sweat soaking him. It turned out that the flag was mistaken for a cannon. On the black flag was a four-clawed dragon tattoo, black like the Daemon flag. Within 100 meters of it, all our teammates recovered. The man on the deck asked in suspicion, "What flag is this? It's not your gang's old flag." Diem stared at him and replied, "Nuki's predecessor was the naval force of the Trin family's treasure island. This is Longki, the Orthodox Navy of the Ming Dynasty. What's your opinion?" Listening to Diem, the man fell silent. When Chetudao drew his double swords to prepare to jump, Tuba wielded his sword and charged out. Tuba stepped barefoot onto the deck, his face indifferent, then made a demon face. Chetudao got annoyed, but Diem shrugged and agreed with Tuba's action. The man on the deck raised a long sword from under the sea, without saying a word, and stabbed straight at Tuba's head. Tuba dodged, chopping off the opponent's sword with a sideways swing. Blood sprayed as the pirate, who was supposed to be invincible, was cut in half and fell into the sea. The cold and dark atmosphere rose as everyone on the ship watched Tuba, blood-soaked. Suddenly, another pirate jumped down, swinging his curved sword at Tuba. Tuba advanced and cut off half of the man's head, but he also received a slash on his hip. Tuba retreated a few steps, then advanced and thrust his sword into the man's chest. The man staggered back and fell into the sea, unable to breathe. Tuba dodged the next attacker's strike, snatched a sword from the deck, and kicked it into his opponent's side, severing his artery. Blood sprayed like a fountain. Another pirate jumped down, and Tuba retreated but was still hit on the arm by a long slash. His eyes gleamed with murderous intent as he charged forward. The man, Trondom, looked astonished at the scene of battle unfolding beneath him. In just a few moments, Tuba had defeated 5 men. Chetudao watched the battle attentively. This Kaoliqui's strength is indeed remarkable. He has already defeated 5. Tuba knelt on the deck, blood flowing from his stomach and shoulder. He knew he couldn't be complacent. The next opponents would be even stronger. Suddenly, a giant man nearly 2 meters tall, with broad shoulders, jumped down. He kicked forcefully, pinning Tuba down. Tuba staggered, pushed up, and was struck in the abdomen with a sword. It was urgent. Tuba dropped his sword and tightly grasped the opponent's blade. The sword flashed, blood gushing as it pierced deeper into Tuba's abdomen. The giant man felt something was wrong, but Tuba clenched the blade harder, blood flowing down his stomach. He looked up at the man, laughing mockingly, then with all his strength, pulled the sword back, causing the 300-pound giant to stagger and fall. Seeing him fall, Tuba jumped up and bit straight into the man's neck. The man screamed in agony as blood spurted all over the ship. The dark sea was dyed red, and everyone on the boat looked on in horror, uncertain of the outcome. They only saw the corpse of the giant pressing down on Tuba, blood spreading everywhere. They didn't know who won or lost, only witnessing the bloody scene. Tuba, realizing the urgency, pushed the corpse off him, staggering to his feet. The sword struck his abdomen directly. Tuba grabbed the sword handle, trying to pull it out gently, but then stopped. He knew he couldn't withdraw it. If he did, he would die immediately. Nguyen stared intently at Tuba on the deck, pondering deeply. Kwaikali, every one of them is a sharp character of Nuki. Even considering casualties, we're down to just 400 people left for Yemswayan Lean. That doesn't even include Nuki's scope outside. Among those who washed their hands and wield swords, there are over 100,000. They're all skilled sailors and deadly marksmen, killers and plunderers. It's careful selection among this crowd that truly qualifies one to become Kwaikali. Tuba has shown potential. He just took down one Kwaikali. The secret art of training, Kwaikali, has been passed down from the families on Fok Osa Street, and very few know its mysteries today. Only Thafunhan of Hongki and Quach Bay of the Dark Faction are known to possess it. Adding to the difficulty is the rigorous training, making it extremely complicated. Killing isn't just cutting grass. It's not a martial arts contest or a game of strategy. Being a leader means not letting subordinates seek death. It's not about playing games with lower-ranked opponents, but bringing out truly strong individuals to deal with them. Thinking so, Nguyen called a man wearing a black headscarf with 2 white stripes, named Mammon. Mammon leaped over the mast with a sharp knife in hand, landing on the deck to signal Tuba. Kwekali has encountered a few of them before. Tuba is now weary, not as spirited as before. The wound on his stomach has caused significant damage. Diem still looks down at the crowded deck with a serious face, turning to look into the distance through the mist. He feels something is about to happen. Chet Hudeo said to Diem, Tuba is not his match. How do we play by these rules? The first person is almost guaranteed to die. Even if they fall into the sea, no one will rescue them. The scent of blood attracts sea monsters. Jumping into the sea will tear them apart. Even if they're rescued, they'll likely be crippled. It's a pity for this kid. I quite like him. At this moment, Diem didn't know what to do and had to say to Chet Hudeo. He himself wants to fight first. What can I do? We have to see how he handles it. If it's really not okay, then later, we avenge him on the deck. Tuba's stomach wound still bled as he took hold of the knife. A murderous aura emanated from the ground. They all said they had never played with women. Living this life is meaningless without it. I've eaten meat several times, fish, chicken, wild boar, and today, even shark meat is edible. But just haven't played with women. I want to be first. Thabin's simple text includes 48,000. Small ones enter the academy. Large ones announce Sun and Tran High, without any exclusions. Just now, Tuba looked at Mammon and emitted a fierce aura, regardless of his injuries. He swung his knife at Mammon's head, but it seemed to hit a rock and couldn't penetrate. Mammon stepped back, as if his soul had escaped, leaving another Mammon standing still with a knife. Thabin's first form greeted the opponent's attack with astonishment. Tuba stared in disbelief as the wide blade struck Mammon's head like hitting a rock, unable to penetrate. Mammon's soul seemed to surge forward, merging the two into one. The curved knife and Tuba's sword pierced straight into his throat. Blood spurted as the blade plunged deep into Tuba's neck. The hilt stuck in his throat, unable to advance further. His eyes flickered with a golden light, secretly pleased that the knife in his neck could still save him. But once it was pulled out, no one could save him. Then he tightened the curved knife, quickly pulling back. Tuba realized he couldn't let the knife be pulled out and had to follow Mammon forward. As the knife's tip approached the back of the deck, its poisonous essence from Bada seeped into the wound, not only causing numbness but also rapidly diminishing combat effectiveness. Mammon smiled, lifting his right leg to forcefully kick the knife deeper into Tuba's abdomen. The curved knife pierced deeply into Tuba's belly, and he tightened his belt, pushing it into him. Mammon intended to pull the curved knife out of Tuba's neck, but Tuba clenched the blade, surprising Mammon. He couldn't understand why the kid still had such great strength. Now it was too late to evade. Both hugged each other and fell into the sea, waves crashing loudly. Compared to the corpses that had just fallen, they drew the attention of large sea creatures. Several dark figures circled the pirates on the deck, almost simultaneously furious about the life and death battle on the deck, which was a separate matter. But this situation seemed to be an external intervention. Nguyen didn't hesitate, swiftly jumping down with a bamboo pole, aiming straight for Tuba. The pirates of Honki immediately grabbed their bows, aiming at Nguyen and fired 7 or 8 arrows. Nguyen remained silent, using Thabin's basic form to deflect them all. When they were about to hit Tuba, it turned out that Diem had also joined the fray. After a few strikes, he managed to push him out.